So because we had some hiccups yesterday, we are going to jump back and get into the question for yesterday. And it was about this two-ness, that this contradiction that we have, that we can have great joy and great pain, sometimes experiencing it in the exact same moment. And so how do we deal with that? Because many of us see that as we're at war with ourselves. And what do they say? A house that's divided cannot stand. And so we've got to change that from a war to what I said earlier, that we have a win-win instead of a win-lose. And actually, as we're dealing with other people and as we're working through conflict and the things that challenge us, that's the thing we have to keep in mind, that no matter what the conflict is, can I make this a win-win? Somebody tells me something I don't want to hear and it hurts me and I've got to process it, but how do I make it a win for that person and for me? How do I uplift their humanity and do mine at the same time? So I want to preface that before I talk about the question. And here's the question for yesterday. What's going on in your life right now that gives you incredible joy or happiness? And what's going on that makes you sad or nervous? So it's this two-ness, this contradiction that you can be experiencing. What's going on that gives you incredible joy, and what's going on that gives you, makes you nervous or afraid. And I want to ask you, if you get a chance in the comments, because I love the comments, it gives us a chance to go back and forth. But in the comments, was this a hard question for you? Was it easy? Were you surprised at your answer? I really want to know what the question was, because it was a complex question and it had two parts. But I also believe I've never really heard us talk about this idea that you can carry and hold two things at once. And I think that sometimes we don't realize that when things diminish us, things take us off track, that's exactly what it is. It's that those two things warring against each other that we're not aware of and that we therefore don't address. Part of this program is to say, how do I start 2025 in a different way than ever? And the way that we do that is to get past our triggers, to get past our habits that are not good for us. And it's about being aware of what takes us off track. I know it makes me feel good. I know it makes me feel celebrated. But that thing that takes me off track, it makes me think of the Princess and the Pea. Like, she's on all of these mattresses, but it's that little pea that she can feel. And it's that little pea. It's a little nudge. And it's like, something's off today. I don't feel good. And that's the thing that can really, really mess us up. So if you have any feedback about what the question did for you, or if it was hard, if it was easy, I would love to hear that. Precious says, I realize that my joy and pain can often come from the same place. Oh, Lord, preach, Precious. I heard Pastor Darius Daniels talk about that one day, and he said, I absolutely, what it is something about, I love people and people bring me such joy. And I hate people at times, and people bring me such pain. Now, hate's a strong word. He didn't use that word, but it was just this idea that the same people that we love greatly will bring us pain. Why? Not because we're trying to do that sometimes, because we're all human. And if you live long enough, you are going to be disappointed by some people, and you are going to disappoint people. I think what happens is we always turn the scope on other people and say, oh my goodness, how could they? That's ridiculous that they would do that. When in truth, we ourselves are going to disappoint people. And when we recognize our own humanity, we have this chance, this beautiful chance to see someone else's humanity. And I think that's really important. Kim has said, Kimberly, I made a choice to stop saying, I can't push through my insecurities. Yes, yes. We have to stop some things. And that's what we're working on, to identify those things and then to stop it. So I think it's so very, very important. So this idea of two-ness, I really want you, whether you answered the question yesterday or you maybe didn't see it, and so you have to answer it today, that when you go into day 10, it's just like, what are you experiencing right now that's bringing you great joy and hope? And what are you experiencing that's making you nervous or bringing you pain? Because understanding that two-ness is so very important. And when we understand that two-ness, we want to find a way to make it a win-win. But I also think that we have to remember that in order to make it a win-win, we take the thing that's causing us pain or making us nervous and turning it. We have this chance to redeem it. We have this chance every single day to take something hard and make it something else. It's funny because when I started doing this work, and especially when I was dealing with people who were really, really grieving these horrendous situations with grief from death, oftentimes they would say, Denise, I'm so sorry about the sudden deaths of your mom and your son and your aunt and your husband. I'm really sorry about it. But what I'm happy about is that you use that experience in order to help other people. And I would always say to people, I don't believe that happened to me so I could do this work. I believe that happened to me. And then I made a choice to redeem that situation by learning more about grief, by figuring out what people need, and by giving it to them because it's the same thing I needed each occasion that I was hurting so badly. And so I took this opportunity to take a bad thing and make it into something good. And I love the word choice because choice denotes power. And when we realize that we are powerful and not powerless, it changes everything. Speaking of that, it says, Denise says, I miss those that I've lost and not but I'm excited about good things happening in my life. That's the two-ness. That's the two-ness that we talk about. Good morning, Cynthia and Rose. I'm so glad to see you both virtually. All right. So I want you to come back to this question a little bit. I want to share my screen with you because I want you to see how I process this question. So I said, what am I excited about and what am I worried about at the same time? I think about it with whole heart. I am so excited and happy about the work we're doing here and the place that we're at right now. This 21 days to life has truly given me life. And it's a game changer. But at the same time, I'm nervous and I'm worried. And I wrote down, can I really lead this team in achieving success? And I think a lot of that comes from the things that we've spoken about before, the struggles that I have at times with self-esteem. And so that was my initial answer. I'm nervous about, can I really lead this team in achieving success? But when I went through and thought about it later that night, yesterday night, I've changed my answer and I put, I think what I'm nervous about is whether I can consistently think, feel, and act in ways that cause a quantum leap for whole heart. Because I'm thrown off at times by the things that I struggle with. I'm thrown off and I struggle. And so can I consistently do what's necessary in order to get us to the place that we need to be? So what I told you is we can take that area that we're happy and excited about, pat ourselves on the back and say, yes, Denise, y'all are doing great work. And I'm proud of me. But at the same time saying, okay, I'm worried about my consistency here. And so let me speak to that and let me redeem that. And the way that I redeem that, I wrote down 4 notes for you that how do we overcome this internal contradiction that we have, this warfare? And again, it comes back to the power of our choice. So if we're at this crossroads and we're trying to figure out what we're going to do, that I'm going to tell you that we're going to do 4 steps. First, we're going to acknowledge that we're complex beings. That means I can hold 2 different emotions at one time, and there's nothing wrong with me. In fact, I'm just completely being human. The second thing is I want to be mindful in pivoting from a win-lose to a win-win. Everything can be a win-win if we choose. Third, I want to change our focus from what I don't want to what I do want. And why is that slight adjustment necessary? Because what inspires you, what lifts you up is not the negative. It's going to be the positive, this aspirational goal that I want. That is actually what's going to lift me up. And then finally, we got to say, do this over and over until new habits are formed. Yo, we got some bad habits. Well, y'all tell me this. Y'all told me the other day, I'm not the only one with bad habits. So we've got these bad habits. And so can I tell you, those bad habits didn't spring up overnight. It took some time and then they settled in for you. And so when we change the bad to the good, it's going to be the same thing, that it's going to take a little bit of a minute. We're going to adjust in some way. But as we adjust, we are going to keep getting better. Remember, we say we're going to spiral up. I keep getting better, and then I get to a problem at a higher level because I keep getting better. And one day I'll have no problems because I'll be in another place and y'all won't be looking at me at all. Okay, so as I say that, what I also want to do is to bring you back to what is it that we said. I also said that I wanted you yesterday to fill out our, what do we call it? Our declaration page. On page 2, it was figuring out what's underlying our triggers and then turning it in between what's underlying our triggers and what are the habits that we have. Turn those things around, and what it becomes is this value statement. And so I asked you to write yourself a value statement. Again, if you did not do it, don't worry about it. You always have the opportunity to do it again today or tomorrow or the next day. But I'm so glad that you have the opportunity. So here it is. That on the first week, we did the power in the middle with our word. We also did present and external. And then the first word, in the second week, the first word we attacked was internal, and we put our values. And when we put our values, I said things for myself like I will spiral up as I seek hope, joy, peace, love, and as I uplift, respect, justice, and rest. And so as we do that, then the second part of it is taking the pain, as we see the pain that we experience, and figuring what's underlying our triggers, what's underlying our habits. So for me, I'm like looking at mine and I'm thinking, what's under that? And I've said it to you. If I said it once, I've said it 20 times that we've been together, that I have this level of self-doubt that has been with me since I was a little girl, feeling like I was invisible, feeling like I wasn't worthy, feeling like nobody loves me, sometimes not even God. And so when I look at 2025, what I'm going to do is speak to my pain in a powerful way and also speak to the promise that comes with it. So I made this statement that I am turning the pain of self-doubt, which is I need to get a definition for words. So I looked it up and I said, self-doubt is a lack of faith in myself and being controlled by other people's opinions of me. Initially, I said other people's negative opinions of me, but I went back and I took out the word negative because I always remember my good friend. Oh my goodness. I remember one day I met with this pastor and she doesn't even remember it. But he said, Denise, you are so good at what you do. You are anointed. And I was excited. And I came and I remember where I was driving. I was driving to Mount Airy. And I called her and I was like, this guy, he said I was anointed. And she said, that was nice, but I love it when you know it. Oh my goodness. It was like she threw cold water on me, but in a way that didn't defeat me. It inspired me. Like, yeah, why did I need him to tell me that? I should know who I am. And it has always stayed with me. So I really, really appreciate my friend for doing that. So I'm saying I'm turning the pain of self-doubt, which is a lack of faith in myself and being controlled by others' opinions of me, and replacing it with the promise of assurance, having confidence in and being certain of myself as one who is worthy. And again, I decided how I was going to redefine and restate that statement because I looked at what I wrote down on day 8 and 9 and 10. And I said, let me repurpose this. I'm saying this and I'm showing it to you now because that is part of what I need you to do. I need you to go to that block that says pain, and I need you to think about your triggers, and I want you to think about your habits and say, what's underlying that? What is it for me? It might not be for you. It might not be self-doubt. It might be some other thing that keeps you, that you don't feel like you're part of other people, that you feel like you're isolated, or you feel like you're alone in everything. So you're going to turn the pain of always feeling like you're alone into the promise of what? And the promise of what is the opposite of that thing that is pulling us down. For me, the opposite of self-doubt is assurance. That word just resonates with me because my favorite song right now is talking about blessed assurance. And so that stands out for me. But I'm making a declaration over myself, over my 2025, over my entire life, that I'm going to turn that pain into promise. And so if you have any questions about that, be sure that you put it in the comments. So I'll make sure, even if I don't address it here, I always go back to the comments and try to address them at night or in the afternoon. So I'd love to do that. If any of you also understand what your underlying issue is and you want to share that with other people, please do that as well. I always say to my team that the power of Me Too is unmistakable, that oftentimes I feel like I'm the only one of me who feels a certain way. I think I'm the only one who struggles with certain things until I get in a group and I say, man, I struggle with that. And somebody else says Me Too. And what it tells me is that in this world, in this situation, in this struggle, I am not alone. And sometimes it's all I need to know, okay, if she's gone through it and I see who she is and what she's accomplished, or if he's been through this, and I can too. So this power of Me Too, I think, is very important. I also want to say, I'm reading what Lisa said. That's what my friend Denise said at the end of her journey with cancer. She said, I win either way. If I'm healed on this side of the glory, I win. If the Lord calls me home, I win. So it is a win-win. And can I tell you, Lisa, I was teaching what they call a death cafe, where you get together with people and you talk about death. And one of the participants said something that really impacted me. And she said, we treat death as a failure. And she said, it's absolutely not a failure. And so when you say that, Lisa, I absolutely resonate with that. I'm glad that your friend had the courage to say that. And on the other side of that question, my friend Denise, who's on here, she once told me, and having two children who passed away within days of each other, that she also was able to experience that they were exactly where they were supposed to be. So she, as the grieving person, was able to see it as a win. And I was so inspired by that, because each time that I have lost someone, I did not experience it as a win. I experienced it as complete pain. Forget about what they needed. I don't care. I need them here with me. So that's all I could think about, is what I had lost. But I also think that's human nature. And it wasn't until I was able to work through my stuff that I said, I would give anything to get my dad back here to tell me every day is a new day. And I love you, my daughter, because he did it every single morning. I would give everything I have to do that. But I wouldn't, because I know he's in a better place. I know he is at peace. I know he is no longer hurting. And so I turn that, I know that he can't be here with me physically, but the win is he's still with me. I quote him all the time. I love him dearly. I am his guts. I fight like he does. I'm stubborn like he was. But I also am committed to changing this community just like he was. So I find what moves me. So anyway, if you want to share what you find your underlying issue is, I'd love to see you do that. But in the meantime, don't forget, I need you to go back to that square on the declaration page, page 2, and write out how you're going to reclaim that pain. You're going to name the pain, and you're going to turn it into promise, because you're going to make it into the opposite. Because sometimes we have to remind ourselves of our triggers, because that way we can state it and say we're going to build from there. Hope that makes sense to everybody. All right. So we have done a lot together. Our time has really moved today. What I want to do as we move forward is that Denise says our loss is our loss is their gain, and that's why she inspires me. That girl's incredible. That woman is incredible. All right, I can't believe that the time has gone by so quickly. So that being said, I have to introduce you to the question for today, and this is day 11. Remember, and we are talking about reclaiming our habits. And if I have these bad habits that come automatically, and I've talked about them and how things can trigger me and set off that habit, then I also have to reclaim it. Just like I'm moving from pain to promise, I have to reclaim those habits and make them into the habits that I desire. The way that we do that is we call it what it is and we say what it is we want to be. So I can always think about, oh, I shouldn't have done this. I shouldn't have said this. I shouldn't have thought this. Yes, but we're about to leave that in 2024, or we're going to leave it in the first 10 days of 2025. What we're about to now do is to claim and name the ways that we want to behave. Because I told you before in the model that it is our habits that are these thoughts, feelings, and actions that we don't think about. And we want to move from those habits, which are, we say our reaction, to a response. And the response is I pause in the middle, I realize who I am and what I'm called to be, and then I respond out of that place. And when I get to a response, it is actions, thoughts, and feelings that I choose, that empower me and that align with who I was created to be. So for your question today, I'm wanting to ask you, or I want you to ask yourself, what do you want your thoughts, feelings, and actions to consistently be? We already kept talking about what they are and we don't want them to be, but now we have to say, what do I want my thoughts, feelings, and actions to consistently be? And for that, I'm going to one last time share my screen and show you how I work through this question. And here it is. I'm sorry, I'm trying to make it as big as I can. First, we'll start with, what do I want my thoughts, feelings, and actions to consistently be? The way I approached this, I wrote thoughts, I wrote feelings, and I wrote actions. So the thoughts, and if I'm a messy writer, that's okay too, because we're going to redeem that. That's a win. So that gives me the chance to type things sometimes. Anyway, my thoughts, I learn from my accomplishments and setbacks. That's the thought I want to do. Because when something happens and challenges me, I want to say, I learned from it. It's okay for me to have setbacks. I've learned from it, just like we learned from yesterday. Number two, I want to think people will disappoint me and I'll disappoint them. But that doesn't define us. When people tend to disappoint me, I'm like, oh, they're this and they're that. They're all bad or all good. And the truth is, none of us is all bad or all good. We are both. And I have to acknowledge that with other people and don't demonize them, but also don't demonize myself. And then third, the thought I want is I deserve to surround myself with people who love me and support me and show it. I want to be around people who want to be around me, period, and authentically want to be it. Not because I'm giving them a paycheck, not because I'm benefiting them in some way, but because they truly want to be around me. And that's what I'm going to be crafting in 2025. My feelings. The feelings I want is love, joy, peace, loving kindness, patience, gentleness, and self-control. These are related to the values that I said the other day. And the reason why I can get thrown off track is because I'm not focusing on those things. I'm focusing on envy and all this other stuff. And I've got to stop it. And I stop it by looking where I need to look and doing what I need to do. And then the actions is I'm going to separate myself from darkness, including unkind words about other people, one-sided relationships, and speaking death. Remember, death is destructive emotions, actions, thoughts, and habits. And I will look first to the light before I think, feel, or act. If you remember, that goes back to my word for this year. So what are the thoughts, feelings, and actions that you want for yourself? I want you to identify that. And when we get back together tomorrow, we are going to go deeper than that. We are going to make sure that this is our best year yet. I love and appreciate each and every one of you. And I am so glad that you joined us today. Precious reminds us, don't forget to join our private Facebook group, because that's another way for us to interact. All right. You have a great day and have it on purpose. Bye-bye.